Let's see. We can get right into finance. Do we need another 2-minute break? Or we? Um, Kelsey says we're ready. Let's go. All right. Let me turn it to Chair Norton then.
Her mic is booting up, so it'll be just a second. Go ahead, Chair Norton.
Okay. The first item that we have here is on your agenda, number 9.3, the LEA request for extension of FY23 SPED carryover balances. And the motion before the board is that the board does not grant any extensions for FY23 special education carryover balances. This is something that has been ongoing. Numerous memos have been sent out, and we realize that it is time that, when we say that the balances cannot be carried forward, that the balances cannot be carried forward.
Thank you, Chair Norton. Discussion of that motion. I'll just add, before I see other lights, that this was very thoroughly discussed. There were a lot of individual unique cases that were presented, and the balance, as often is the case, was the balance between the exception and the rule. And I think there were votes that felt the rule needed to go into effect. And moving forward, that folks were on notice that that needs to be done, partly in the interest of getting those dollars to the end of the special ed row. So that's just my input from having observed and weighed and wrestled with some of those questions that came up. Member Lear.
Can you, Kristen, help me understand, was there a common reason that these schools, all of which share a common theme, they're all charter schools, is there a common reason why these particular schools made the request for the extension, or why they couldn't have been the only ones that had a carryover balance? But
I will be, if I answered that question, it would just be my speculation. So I'm going to turn that over to Deputy Superintendent Jones, as he would have had more contact, and he maybe would be turning it to someone else.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Deputy Superintendent of Operations Scott Jones. To answer Board Member Lear's question, and I think this is a very good indicator of how well our charter schools and charter school management organizations for those charter schools do manage and control their funds, is they don't spend money just to spend money. It's a clear indicator that everyone knew that they were that the standard was to get the balances below 20%. However, in operations and financial operations, it's not always easy to spend that money as quickly as possible without crossing that line of, well, the expenditures may not have been good expenditures, right? I really think that that's part of the reason that you see these requests for the extensions. I know it's a policy decision on whether or not to grant the extension, and I would, the Finance Committee did their due diligence in exposing this, but I do think that, and appreciate the question that Board Member Lear posed, because I think it is a strong indicator that, hey, they just ran out of time And rather than just executing dollars to get below the threshold, they were very precise in doing that. So, but that doesn't change the fact that everybody was notified that they needed to be below 20%. So it cuts both ways, I think. So, but I do want to make sure that we do acknowledge the fact that we have some very good charter schools, management organizations, districts that are not spending money just to spend money to get in compliance, but it is a policy decision. We understand that. So, Chair, did I answer Board Member Lear's question in a long-winded
Member Lear?
Yeah.
response? Sorry.
I just have a follow-up
Okay.
Sure.
comment that I would maybe hope going forward, and you guys maybe have had all of these conversations, but at least to say this publicly from my perspective, I would hope that there was a concerted effort with our SPED staff, our financial staff, to work with these schools, because we know that there are more services that students with disabilities can get that would
Sure.
help them.
Yes.
It's not like we say, oh my gosh, we have way too much money to serve students with disabilities. We know that's not true. So I wish there is hope for something going forward that will use this money. And I appreciate that you're being really candid and saying they didn't want to just throw the money at the problem. That it's not a problem, at the situation that we all support, but they want to use it meaningfully. So I hope going forward we can help them find a way to use this money in a more timely way. Thanks.
And Superintendent Jones, could you just add on to that, what does happen to that money now? So it's not just going to,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so, Chair, to answer Board Member Norton's question, that money comes back into public education. It's not, it doesn't go away, right? I mean, yes, it's taken from the individual LEA. We invoice them for that amount of money, but it does get, I don't know, for lack of a better term, recycled into the public education funds, so.
And I'll follow up on that. Do we track that for purposes of perhaps seeing where it might be spent on SPED, intensive services, whatever? Do we have, I know it's not restricted,
no.
it becomes unrestricted, right? But do
Yeah.
we at least track the amount that came back?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because we have the controls in place, Chair, with the invoicing. Then, subsequently, when they make the payment back, we turn it over, and yeah, so yes, there is an audit and paper trail for it, absolutely.
So, I mean, it could be considered. Maybe Member Davis is going to speak to this because she's deep in the weeds on this. But we had two things going on: a lot of money over here in carryover, and a lot of need for intensive services that sometimes isn't funded. And so, I'm not sure exactly how those two can be melded, but keeping track of it might at least put us in position to say, hey, there might be a connection. But Member Davis can make more sense out of that than I. Do we have?
I don't know if this addresses that exact thing you're saying, but I just wanted to make sure that we as members, Chair, remember the impetus for this. And this is a conversation that started 4 years ago. And one of the reasons we lost our intensive services funds is because the legislature was saying, well, if you have all this money that's extra carry forward, why do we need to invest in special ed? And it's this tricky balance because we do need to carry forward in special ed because there are these expenses that arise, and by law, we have to meet these whether we're funded via state or not. So we do need to have some extra cushion, but we need more supports in the, at least I'm hearing over and over, in the self-contained area. And we're not ever going to get it unless we get these carry forward balances kind of under control. But to give everyone the fairest chance possible, we started this discussion 4 years ago. And so, they had at least 3 full years to work toward getting down to the 20%. But I just want folks to understand that we actually, as a board, moved this down to 10%. And so year after next, we may be coming back with this same conversation because we're trying to get to the 10%. For the better of the whole, a few might get caught in those cross years, but we're hoping that we've given enough time. And to give every school on the screen the benefit of the doubt, we went back to check because we thought maybe if they came into existence after, they wouldn't have had the time, and all of these had been in existence for the full time to get the carry forward down.
Vice Chair Earl,
Yes.
welcome. Wait, are you up first?
No, you go whoever's
Sorry,
first.
might be Member Carey first. There we go.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Superintendent Jones, if I may, Chair. There are two lists that were provided in backup, one on page 27 and then another one on page 29. Is it fair to say that those schools that are listed on page 27 are those LEAs which have requested an extension beyond the cutoff date?
Chair Moss, the answer to the question is yes, it's fair to say that. They've requested just one more fiscal year. So an extension all the way through fiscal year 25 is my understanding. Hopefully my staff are shaking their heads north and south. Yes, right? Okay.
And then, Chair, if I may, and is it fair to say, Deputy Superintendent, that the schools listed on page 29 are those schools who, despite outreach from USBE advising them of the approaching deadline, did not request an extension?
So I was looking for page 29. Is there a way we can pull it up just so I'm sure of what I'm looking at is the same as Board Member Carey is looking at? I may be in the wrong backup, so, and then the
it's-
public could see it as well.
There we go. That was, yeah.
So, oh, okay, yeah. So that document, Chair Moss, to Board Member Carey's question, is the full list of invoicing. So that's all the LEAs that we invoiced for, for money above the 20%. But to your earlier question, or to Board Member Carey's earlier question, it's those handful of schools on the previous document that have requested the extension. So these ones, as far as we know, will pay the invoices. It's the other ones that are for those individual schools that are requesting the extension. So hopefully that makes sense. That's
Member
the
Carey?
full
So-
list of all the
does.
schools that were invoiced.
Thank you, and I'm ready to
Okay.
make a motion.
Well, thank you. I think we had one or two lights. Are you okay to hold for one
Oh,
second
yeah,
for a comment? And
Happy.
no motions?
We already made the motion.
Well,
Subst-
yeah, I
A
assume it's
substitute
a.
motion.
Right, okay. Motion's on the floor, but we'll hold motions for Member Carey. Were we out of lights? I thought we had Vice Chair Earl. Okay. You're good? She doesn't keep her light on because it blocks other people. Did you want to go? That's
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that all of these schools still have maintained or retained, I guess I should say, that 20%. And so it's not, what's being looked at is what's excess or above that 20%. So they still have that 20% to use as they need to be, as they choose to over this next year. And then, anyways, so just wanted to draw that attention.
Right, yeah, and just for clarity, I think board members caught this, but the rule was you can only carry 20% forward, and then a year ago, we tightened that down to 10% in response to the discussion that Member Davis referenced. So this is still applying the old standard that you can't carry more than 20%, and next year it'll go to 10%. Back to Member Carey then.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my motion would be that those schools that have, those LEAs that have requested to retain their carryover balance be able to do so. Those that did not would lose and forfeit those funds.
Is there a second?
Wow, rough
Okay,
room.
hearing no second. It's all right.
Yeah,
It's-
geez.
Well, there's been no second, so the floor is yours, though.
So just to comment, Member Carey, I actually had greatly considered that. I met with our staff, and I don't know if the term grilled is appropriate, but asked some pretty probing questions for about an hour. And I am convinced that this motion is the way we should go.
Okay, thank you, Member Bogus. I think it's a great question. I think a lot of us have wrestled with it, and so the floor is back to the underlying motion, which is that the board does not grant any extensions for FY23 special education carry forward. I was Elmer Fudd for a minute there. Carry forward balances. Seeing no further lights, let me tee that up for a vote. Okay.
Hymus is a yes.
Hymus is a yes. Member Klein?
Yes.
Member Klein is a yes. Oh, yes, correct. And Member Hymus. We got Member Hymus already? Okay. Okay. Missing one. Oh, Member Green is not with us, so that passes unanimously 14-0. Back to you, Chair Norton.
Our next action item was the prioritization of fiscal year 2024 carry forward funds for suicide prevention and LEA financial systems. The motion before the board is that the board prioritize $500,000 of one-time funds for suicide prevention and $750,000 of one-time funds for LEA financial systems from 2024 agency carry forward balances. I wanted to make one note on this. There was a issue in the legislation this past year when this suicide prevention was originally intended to be $1,000 per school, and the funding only came through in a half, and so this would make that back to whole so that each school would receive that $1,000 of suicide prevention funds.
Okay, thank you, Chair Norton. Any discussion of the motion? Member Bogus.
So for clarity, through the chair, the legislature awarded each school $1,000, only funded half of it, and we're backfilling their intention with our money? With a
Scott,
question
yes,
mark?
Deputy Jones can address that.
The short answer to Board Member Bogus's question is yes. The backfill, though, is only temporary. It's one-time funds until we get to the legislative session, in which my understanding is Representative Avillson will push to get the legislature to do it. So it could end up being that we get the money back, or, you know, going forward, we wouldn't have to make up the difference of the $1,000. So they could supplement the $500,000. I mean, I can't speak for the legislature on that line, but for now, in order to get to the point where we can provide $1,000 to every school, the money is intended to do just that. Also, if I could add, if the board were to pass this, not trying to unduly influence, only duly inform you, is now that we're closed, that money would come from the student support section, carry forward balances at my direction, because it is available now through the closure process with state finance. So it's allowable, it's within that section anyway, and it is the $500,000. So short answer and then long-winded answer. Sir, does that satisfy Board Member Bogus's question?
I'm seeing a head nod. Vice Chair Earl.
I just have one question too. The
Yes, ma'am.
additional $500, that will be usable this year,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Chair Moss, yes. The answer is yes.
Okay.
And I'll keep that answer short. Yes.
Feel free to elaborate. It's always instructive. Okay. Yes? What was that? Okay. I don't see any other lights. I think we can vote. The motion is that the board prioritizes $500,000 of student support services one-time funds for suicide prevention and $750,000 of one-time funds from financial operations for LEA financial systems from 2024 agency carry forward balances. Please vote. Member
Hymus
Hymus
is
and Member
yes.
Klein. Member Hymus is a yes. Member Klein?
Mine is a no.
Klein is a no. And we need one more, I believe. Okay, that passes with 14 yeses. 1 no, Member Klein, 1 abstention, Member Bogus. Thank you. Back to Chair Norton.
Finance had one additional action item, however, which was the the approval of a Department Corrections request. The Department of Corrections has pulled that request, and so there is no action required on item 3.5. So finance rests. Finance is finished.
Rest your case.
There
Thank
we go.
you, Chair Norton. Short and punchy and efficient.